Hi, my name is Ryan Haggerty, and I am the Director of Photography for the feature-length narrative film Blood on the Leaves. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the camera that we ended up choosing for this particular production and some of the reasons why we ended up making the decision to go with the camera that we did. So go ahead and show you, we ended up shooting with the Panasonic GH4, which came out I think around 2014. And the big to-do about this camera initially was the fact that it shot 4K footage. Not a huge motivating factor for our production. You know, a lot of movies are still projected in 2K, and Blu-ray for that matter is, you know, a lot of Blu-rays still done at 2K or 1080p, and it looks fantastic. You know, you can't really tell the difference between that and 4K. But some of the bigger reasons, I suppose, why we picked this camera had to do with the price, the dynamic range, the battery life, and the file size. So price in independent filmmaking is kind of king. You know, we're all working with very tight budgets, and just to give you an idea, with this particular production, we were shooting on a 13-day schedule. So, you know, the primary cast and crew were there for around 2 weeks. And we were shooting, you know, every day. There was always something going on. And hence the title Blood on the Leaves, we were shooting in the woods a lot. So you can imagine we didn't have a lot of place to plug in outlets for power and things like that. So that certainly helps make a lot of decisions for you. But with the GH4, I actually had purchased this camera February 2015 and was using it on productions that I was doing for clients. I already owned it. So that helped out a lot with the price. I was also looking at potentially renting a Sony A7S, or Blackmagic Design also has their pocket cinema camera. And those two cameras actually do a couple things really well. The Blackmagic pocket camera has a really wide dynamic range, and it also has a relatively less compressed file format, which means when you get it into post-production, you want to do color correction and grading, you have a lot of leeway with that particular camera. The Sony, on the other hand, it has a picture profile called S-Log2, which records pretty flat footage for the most part. You know, low contrast, not a lot of saturation in the colors, which also lends itself to post-production. So you can capture that highlight and that shadow detail and apply the look that you want at that point versus having it baked in camera. The GH4, on the other hand, it has a couple different profiles in it, such as Cine D, which do tend to look a little bit more cinematic, hence the Cine part of Cine D there, but they're not as flat as a log profile. But Panasonic was actually rumored in 2015 to be releasing V-Log for this camera. And I believe it was actually announced maybe in spring of 2015 they were actually going to roll it out. And luckily for us, we filmed in October, it came out in September. So I actually got that enabled on this camera, was able to test it out and see how it looked on the computer and, you know, apply some LUTs to it and things like that. And was pretty happy with the flexibility of V-Log. So, you know, we had the log profile. We have a camera that can shoot in 4K, which you can crop into, which is a nice perk. But the other things that I mentioned, the battery life and the file size, while not the most exciting things to talk about, certainly affect the price. For instance, on the Blackmagic camera, while it shoots on an SD card, much like the GH4 does, the file sizes themselves are a lot larger. So the GH4, when you're shooting in the cinematic 4K mode, this is a little 64 gig SD card. You can get about an hour and 25 minutes worth of footage onto one card. Whereas the Blackmagic Pocket camera shoots in different flavors of footage. I know you can shoot ProRes, DNX HD, and I believe there's some kind of compressed RAW format you can shoot on that. But you're going to get generally a lot less footage on the same size memory card, which when you're in the middle of the woods is kind of a big deal because you don't want to have to carry a million memory cards you're going to lose. And it also saves you on money. But then on the post-production side of things, at the end of the day, when you're logging all that footage, it's going to take you time, which when you're really tired at the end of the day, getting that kind of stuff done accurately is kind of an important part of it. But also you don't have to buy as many hard drives to be able to back up your footage. So file size was a big deal. And also being out in the woods, as I mentioned earlier, we didn't have anywhere to really plug in power that was convenient. So, you know, the GH4 just takes these little fairly inexpensive batteries, and one charge battery, depending on how you use the camera, could last you anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. So, you know, the battery life was a really big deal for our production, which was one of the reasons, in addition to price, that we didn't really go after that Blackmagic camera or the Sony camera. If you have a lot of batteries at your disposal, certainly those cameras might better suit your needs. So, mention a lot of the good things about this. As far as perhaps its weaknesses or things that it doesn't do really well, it is a crop sensor camera, so it doesn't gather light as well as, say, an APS-C or 35mm motion picture camera, or even a full frame camera like the Sony A7S does. And we did have some nighttime scenes, so in order to compensate for that low light, I actually added this Metabones Speedbooster, which is both a lens adapter, and it also has glass elements in it that allow you to, it gathers essentially an extra stop of light onto the image sensor and makes it, you know, gather light more efficiently. It also increases the apparent field of view of the lens that you put on it to make it actually wider. So, and both of those things did help us in various ways with the nighttime scene. Obviously, having more light was better. You know, I did shoot up to about ISO 1600, which can get a little messy with the GH4, but I didn't have to go to ISO 3200. And then for some of the interior car shots, having a wider angle field of view helped with the variety of shots we could get. We could get 2 shots on characters and have them both interacting within the same scene. And as far as lining up the shots, you know, that also came down to lens selection for us. I own a couple of Nikon F-mount photography lenses. So that interior car shot I was just referring to, I used the Tokina 11-16 2.8. which for my money is a pretty sharp lens. You know, the distortion wasn't too crazy, and also the color and the contrast quality of it is fairly consistent with some of the other lenses I was using, which meant I didn't have to do as much matching in post-production. The other lens that I already owned is a telephoto Nikon 80-200 2.8, the AFD version. It's an older version. And there's a deer shot in the movie, not literally shooting the deer, but like filming the deer, where, you know, I can only be so close to this animal before he gets skittish. So having that particular lens was extremely helpful in being able to capture that footage, as well as some additional telephoto shots. It was my go-to telephoto. And then that leaves kind of the workhorse lenses that we use for the majority of the picture. So Sigma has actually really stepped up their lens game, and they released an art series of lenses, which includes a lot of primes, which are fantastic for movie making. But we only had so much time to film. So we ended up renting a Sigma 18-35 1.8, which for my money acts like, you know, primes in that entire focal length. So from 18 to 35 millimeters at 1.8, the sharpness wide open, the lack of chromatic aberration, the consistency of the contrast and the colors and everything, it performed really well. So having that zoom lens on the front of the camera for a lot of the shots and not having to change lenses really saved time between setups. So, you know, time is money on a film set, and when you only have so many days to work with your talent, not having to switch lenses is kind of a big deal. We also did rent a Sigma 51.4 art lens. And either one of these lenses, honestly, you know, if you're looking to use them for production in general, they're not crazy expensive, but they're very affordable as a rental. And the 51.4, we're able to use for some tighter close-ups to really knock the background out of focus, also in some low light situations where we needed that extra 2/3 of a stop of light, you know, it did come in handy. So it was definitely worth having, although that 18-35 is what rode on the front of the camera for the most of the filming. How does all this add up to the look of the production? Within the world of Blood on the Leaves, we have the woods scenes, which is where the two main characters interact throughout most of the movie. And even though the hunter is at home in the woods, he's being held at gunpoint. He's interacting with somebody that he's not sure he can trust. City Boy is completely out of his element, and he, you know, has no idea how to really get out of this situation. And so there's a lot of gray areas to how the characters feel about their situation, and also what kind of consequences their decisions might have. So to that effect, I did grade the footage a little bit lower contrast for the woods scenes. The colors still pop because the characters, this is more of a production design thing, but the characters are wearing an orange vest with an orange camo cap for the hunter, and City Boy is wearing a red hoodie. So those things really helped me to kind of isolate the characters out of that wooded backdrop. But as I said, with the overall look of it, you know, for the most part was lower contrast. And then I shot with that 18-35 1.8 fairly close to wide open so that the backdrop was still present, but you're able to focus in on the performance of the characters. Now for City Boy's world, the actual urban areas, whether it was an interior or an exterior, we're going with the choice, or with the decision to make it a little more contrasty. You know, in his world, it's all about survival. You know, if you make this decision and you're able to, you know, better your life or get ahead of the game, you know, it's very clear what is right. Right is survival. Wrong is putting yourself into a situation where you're going to end up dead. So, you know, very contrasty, dark shadows, you know, pools of darkness in certain parts of scenes and things like that. There's nighttime scenes. So, you know, overall look, it was really those two worlds, you know, and the way the characters felt about their worlds that motivated them. And we were able to use the vlog on the GH4 to allow us to make those kinds of decisions in post. So, as I said, you know, for our particular production, price, file size, battery life, dynamic range were some of the biggest reasons we chose the Panasonic GH4. I think you'll find that there are lots of different fantastic cameras out there that are going to fit the kind of production that you're working on. And there's lots of great resources if you don't have the money to perhaps rent these cameras beforehand. So go on and check out, you know, Philip Bloom. Go out and check Cinema 5D, EOS HD, News Shooter. These are all fantastic sites, lots of footage, you know, people that have had lots of experience with, you know, a wide variety of formats, and perhaps can give you, you know, a little entry point for making some of those decisions. Obviously, you know, you can also check out the kind of content we're releasing for Blood on the Leaves. It's at botlmovie.com. And if you want to reach out to us directly with any kind of questions or feedback, you can reach us at botlmovie@gmail.com. So thanks, Film Courage, and I look forward to seeing some of your guys' production behind the scenes up here as well.